Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with part 9 of Fundamental Laws, a report of the 68th Convocation of the Rose+croix Order. Evolution. We look about us in our everyday activities and we see the rocks, the flowers, the trees, the fruits, the animals, and other men and women like ourselves. We gaze out of our windows and see the rivers, the lakes, and the mountains. On the balmy summer evening, we see magnificent plants, the stars rivaling the diamond in their brilliance, and here and there we see on the horizon the little fluffy clouds floating in the azure spaces, like down puffed out of the hand of some mighty being. We see the moon moving majestically along the pathway of the heavens, and the sun by day, in its wondrous brilliance, shedding heat and light upon Mother Earth. We look, and lo, everything on our planet gaze heavenward. The flowers lift their head towards the sun. The grass springs up in all its luxuriousness, stretching its blades upward towards the light. And as we behold the beauties about us, we feel a lifting, an exuberance, as if wished to soar into ethereal heights. The soul, entranced by the wonder of creation, rises above the commonplace and sordid things which sometimes occupy our thoughts, and refuses to be trampled in the expression of its ideals, in the glory of its freedom. And the question arises in the mind of the thinker and student of life and living things: whence came this creation? Why is it? And, reaching back as far as the human mind can conceive towards original cause, one is confronted, inevitably, with the proposition: if all these things came from one source, why are they all different? Why are they not manifested in the same way? Why is not all creation a succession of trees, or flowers, or rocks, or animals, instead of the entrancingly diffuse and varied forms among which we are? These are questions which have confronted humanity ever since man has been a thinking entity, and in the consideration of these problems, and as a means of offering an explanation for them, there has arisen two great schools of thought and research. In times gone by, these were diametrically opposed to each other in their teachings, but gradually, as each discovered certain laws on its plane of research, they have been converging in their thought and coinciding in their opinions, until in our day the expression "science proves religion" has become almost axiomatic. One is the great materialistic school, or science. The other is religion. A religion not based upon some dead orthodox belief, but a religion of growth, of expansion, a living, vital religion, which recognizes man's return to his Creator and realizes the laws under which he may become the shaper, the molder of his own destiny, and bring himself into immortality. Every individual in the universe has belonged, consciously or unconsciously, to one of these great institutions. There is no halfway point in the declaration of one's intentions and beliefs. Either the man has believed himself a worm of the dust, a materialist to whom nature says, everything in the manifest universe must follow my law of disintegration or oblivion, or else he has believed that somehow, somewhere, through the great creative forces and substances of the universe, there was the possibility, the opportunity for unfoldment, development, which would turn back the natural tide of the dissolution of things into the elements and make towards that perfection which knows no change. And thus, we have these two seemingly opposed schools of thought which seek to offer the explanation of why these things are and what they may be. Man is fundamentally a materialistic being. He has, ever since birth, given most of his attention to the satiation of his feelings, his desires, his appetites, and thus, in most instances, he has been content to go on satisfying these faculties and senses, taking the materialistic basis as the real and explaining every phenomena which presents itself, Through deduction from his starting point, he has gradually discovered laws through which he is able to arrive at different conclusions, and these laws seem to be definitely established, notwithstanding the fact that the textbook of chemistry of 15 years ago is practically worthless in the present field of scientific research, and such has been the experience with practically all the investigatory efforts of man. But among all the sciences, chemistry is the one upon which the materialistic basis has his ultimate hopes of solving the riddle of existence. It is chief among the physical branches of knowledge. It is the key that unlocks to him the door to which he knows of nature and reveals its beauty to him. This science, although young in years, is a giant in knowledge of materialistic things. It seeks to tell us what matter is, shows us its different grades and qualities, and teaches us its composition and nature, leading us back to the primary invisible inherent condition, and shows us its primary unit and simplicity. Chemistry, aided by the other sciences, teaches us all we need to know about matter. By its aid, we can resolve matter back to its primary elements, to its original gases. Chemists claim made divisions of matter, 4 of which they call the principal gases, the heaviest of which is carbon, the lightest hydrogen, which is 15 times lighter than air and beyond which they have not been able to investigate, claiming that the next step in deduction would result in nothing. But the chemist realizes that as these lightest gases cannot be reduced lower nor destroyed, this form of matter always was. And right at this point in steps the religionist, as we will call him, the follower of religion as the means of attaining his ideal, and says that the conclusion of the chemist is a natural one. That the chemist, the materialist, is dealing with material things, with the effect side of the proposition, and the cause, the real, lies beyond the discovery of mind, the microscopes, the reason of man, and that spiritual things can only be spiritually discovered. That back of all manifestations is the one great creative substance. That this is spirit. That only the development of heart, the illumination of the soul of man, can finally bring him to an understanding of things as he sees them, and offer man the satisfaction which he seeks in the problem of life. So, again, the proposition is resolved into an individual search for satisfaction. Each soul must for itself find the solution in and of itself. No other entity can map out the path of development and produce development without the acquiescence of the one for whom this growth, this expansion is desired. So, for the purpose of this lecture, we desire to offer some of the salient points which have been brought forth in researches of men in the past. Not only what has been discovered by scientists, but also that which has been attained and taught by the spiritual masters and adepts who have gone before us. Primarily, regardless of how refined it may be, matter is always inherent and cannot move itself. Evolution is growth, and if matter takes on new forms, grows as we term them, there must be some moving force which takes hold of the particles and forms them, molds them into shapes, changing, renewing, constructing, and making them continually over some new pattern. And that process must be towards some definite end or purpose, because we cannot conceive of this being done at random, haphazardly, or in accordance with no law or purpose. It follows then that if matter is inherent and cannot of itself have motion, this moving force, which prompts and guides the formation and reformation of matter, must be definite, though seemingly intangible force, exercising intelligence in its activities. We, through physics and chemistry, know something of the properties of light and electricity. We know that these two forces work under definite, unerring laws, and have discovered some of the laws under which they work. We also know that these forces, or properties, are subject to the direction of the laws under which they work, and that they, of themselves, inherently, are not creative in their nature, and do not exercise primary initiative, that is, are not thinking, directing forces. We cannot, then, escape the conclusion that there is something more than mere force as the primal cause of things we see about us. For force, like matter, is inherent, non-creative, and without direction, cannot be set in motion or become productive. Hence, we see that there must be intelligence manifest before there can be development or even growth. Material science has not learned what electricity and light are. It has been able to learn somewhat of the effect of light upon certain elements and organisms, to measure its velocity, its penetration, and ascertain certain phases of its vibration. It has learned what electrification is, and to a certain extent has discovered in what manner it operates, and some of the laws governing its actions. But, as heretofore suggested, the cause of these manifestations is still unknown. Transcending the material evidences of electricity and light, we see visible manifestations of a superior intelligence in the creations about us. There is demonstrated attraction and repulsion, sensation, instinct, reason and intelligence, and the religionist again offers the explanation that these things are the result of the manifestation of what he calls spirit. One cannot doubt that these faculties and propensities are inherently the result of the activity of matter, because matter of itself has no action. It also follows that if this guiding intelligence, which we call spirit, were removed from matter, matter would be devolved of its forming intelligence, its holding together adhesive power, and would, of necessity, decay or lose its forming power and shape. The conclusion cannot be escaped that if there is a principle or spirit which is the basis of material manifestation, that spirit cannot be weighed by any known scales, however delicately constructed, nor does it occupy exclusive space, nor is it inherent like matter. In other words, it is in no sense like matter, because, as a matter of logic, if it were, it would be matter. Matter furnishes material to form physical bodies, but cannot, by reason of its inertia, furnish either life or intelligence. Spirit, then, of necessity, furnishes principle to produce sensation, instinct, reason, intelligence, and according to the religionist, immortality. And at this point, the religion, adherent almost miraculously, injects the query, what is matter anyway? But whatever it is, the fact remains that if spirit is removed from ever so perfect a material body, all life is gone, and we have the primal elements. Spirit, like matter, is of many grades of fineness and manifestation, according to the amount of spirit and development of the form in which it functions. Spirit being in everything in proportion to the fitness of matter and perfection of form, we see it manifest according to certain laws. In the magnetic iron, the charming serpent, the fascinating woman, the magnetic man. It flashes in the air, sparkles in the mineral, blossoms in the vegetable, feels in the worm, thinks in the animal, reasons in the human, shines resplendent in the soul, full of love and wisdom, radiant with immortality and eternal life, the highest intelligence in the universe. We have tried to contrast, in a brief manner, the basis upon which the two great schools of thought are founded. We have suggested the properties of matter and spirit. We have tried to show their relationship in a manner that would harmonize with the great laws which we only dimly comprehend, realizing, however, that all laws work identically on the different planes of their manifestation. Always does cause produce effect, no matter what the field of operation of the law may be. But let us go a little further. We find matter diffused through space and principally concentrated in certain locations, as in planets, for example. And the world we inhabit, if matter is thus concentrated, it is not reasonable to suppose that spirit also has its center of activity, its source. Reason tells us that if we could find any planet or sphere which is different from matter, or is not matter, it would be the other principle which we call spirit. The question arises, how do we know planets are matter? The answer is suggested by our material senses. We know they are matter because they have the qualities of matter. They are heavy, solid, opaque, do not radiate heat or light, and cannot either move themselves or other planets. Let us consider then If there is any known orb or sphere which has none of these qualities, but has qualities directly opposed to those of matter, and exactly like the qualities of what we call spirit, we look up into the heavens on a bright hot day, and we are confronted with the possible solution of our question. Embodied matter is planet. Could not embodied spirit be the sun? We have here two phases of the proposition, showing the relationship between them. Matter concentrated into spheres makes worlds. Spirit concentrated into spheres makes suns. Planets, having the properties of matter, can do nothing of themselves. Their motion and light is given them from the sun. The sun, true to spirit, moves and lights, and gives life to all worlds. Let us closely follow the explanation of the religionist in his effort to prove to us that the sun, with the assistance of matter, does all that is known that spirit can do. It is known that the sun acts electrically and attracts and repels, moves and controls all planets. Electricity is a manifestation of spirit. The suns light up all worlds and all space where they shine. Light is not matter. Light passes through matter like other grades of spirit do. Spirit light shines on particles of matter and illuminates them, making them reflect light to us. But light is clearly and grandly a spirit manifestation. The sun throws out its heating power and acting on and through matter, warms all matter and passes through matter as matter cannot do. Therefore clearly proven that heat is not matter and must therefore be spirit and comes from the sun, the only source of spirit. The sun throws out its spirit electric power and magnetizes atoms, minerals, vegetables, insects, animals, and humans, and all these throw out their received magnetism in proportion to the amount received, and their will and ability to so radiate. Spirit from the sun, acting through its suitable manifestations of heat, light, electricity, and magnetism, acts upon invisible, primal matter, attracting, heating, illuminating, and condensing it by its own laws of spirit power, thus concentrating primal matter into atoms, atoms into nebula, nebula into comets, comets into spheres, spheres into planets, planets into worlds. Spirit acts upon gaseous matter and converts it into water, the most negative of all matter, thus making itself, as we are told, a proper mate. For it is reasoned, it is not good that even the sun should be alone. Gradually, as this cooling orb gave the hardening crust, almost imperceptibly came life. At this point, leaving the abstract, life becomes more intelligent. The spirit, sun, shone upon the moistened matter earth, converting the surface of the hard sterile rock into living soul, and out of this same living soul, by the power of the spirit fructifying the vitalized matter, sprang into growth the lower forms of vegetable life, scarcely in degree above mineral, and the same fructifying generating process of spirit went on vitalizing and refining matter, and thus gradually produced higher and yet a higher and more perfect form of vegetable life, until the perfect tree, with its glistening leaves, scented flowers, and luscious fruit proclaimed the perfection of the vegetable kingdom. There was life, perfect vegetable life, in all its magnificence and grandeur. There was life and growth and perfection. Still there was yet no intelligence in all the boundless realm of nature, because there was as yet no organization component to produce or employ intelligence. The organism which could transmit or embody that intelligence had not yet evolved. But nature went on with its creative process of spirit power and unchanging law, from the highest vegetable to the lowest animal life. There is no more stretch of power or change of progressive law than there was from rock to soul, or from soul to vegetable. All are but parts of the same creative process and manifestation of spirit power. Then, from the lowest to the highest type of animal life, The process is analogous to the production of higher vegetables from the lower. All nature is a process of evolution. As all vegetable life develops from the lower to the higher, so does all animal life evolve through the working of the same natural law, by the same unchanging, illimitable, and exhaustless power of spirit. All came in harmony with law and in proper order. There was no missing link in the chain of creation, nor can there be a disturbing of the natural sequence of unfoldment, for if there were, it would be contrary to the law of evolution, growth, and one can see without much study if the law of creation were not absolute and unchangeable, the whole order of the universe would be disturbed and nothing would be certain. For instance, in such a state of uncertainty, the planting of a peach seed might produce a lion, or the fruition of the acorn be a crop of snakes or Hottentots. We can thus see the growth, development, and variety of vegetable life as it is produced by cultivation, circumstance, climate, and soil, and that the great varieties of species, with their degrees of perfection, come from the one, or at the most, few original stocks. Low down in the vegetable scale, as in comparatively modern time, we find that all varieties of apples, apricots, pears, quinces, and other fruits come from the one original rose bush, and that all cherries, plums, peaches, and similar varieties came from the one insignificant poisonous plum peach of Persia. Thus, the growth, development, variety, and perfection of all vegetable life foreshadows, prepares, and proclaims the growth, development, evolvement, and ultimate perfection of animal life, man. Animal life began without intelligence, and through the law of positive spirit acting through negative matter, evolved into or up to intelligence, commencing with the lowest form of life and developing through the progressive grades of animal growth up to sensation, instinct, reason, and intelligence. The hope of humanity, of those who pin their faith upon the possibilities of conscious evolution, is that the ultimate, the climax of all human endeavor, of all evolution, may be attained, immortality, tracing animal life in its development from the quadrupeds to quadrumana, and Dunamina up to Humana. There is a gradual ascent and plainly marked line of lineage, an unbroken chain, not as Darwin, Huxley, and Spencer have suggested, a missing link. There can no unbridged chasm be found. Nature is complete in all her works, from the lowest animal to dog, ape, baboon, monkey, orang, gorilla, chimpanzee, up to the Terra del Fuegians, who are entirely without civilization or improvement, who apparently have not even the intelligence to procure themselves the necessities of life, and are naturally most bestial in their habits. They are so low in the scale of human development that scientific explorers have not as yet been able to classify them, whether with man or beast. The next link in the chain of development of man are the diggers, Indians, the Bushmen, and the Andaman Islanders. Then successively, the Guinea Negroes, the higher grades of Africans, the Indian, the Malay, the Mongol, the different grades of Circassians, and then from the lowest Briton, who was a wild, warlike person when Julius Caesar, 1/2 century before Christ, landed a settlement of Rome soldiers in Great Britain, to the highest American, one vast chain of evolutionary progress. Thus we have set forth briefly the contentions of the materialist and the religious schools of thought. As we before said, all development is a matter of individual concern and endeavor. But we would fall short of our purpose if, after taking the subject to this point, we did not draw some conclusions which would be of benefit in the development of those who are desirous of carrying forward to yet greater and higher attainment this possibility of ultimate evolution of which man has always dreamed. And to that end, we desire to sum up in a few brief remarks some suggestions as to how this may be accomplished. We have today the greatest civilization which the world has seen for ages. There is at the present stage of human development the acutest awakening of the intellect and the greatest research into occult things which the world has ever known. But can we say that humanity has evolved to the highest attainable goal? Reason tells us that the present high standard of humanity is the evolvement of the lowest form of life through the successive stages of perhaps plant, animal, and human development, and that this development, in the first stages at least, went forward without the faculty of individual intelligence. In other words, that there was no individual initiative of intelligence or reason. What, then, are the possibilities of a soul endowed with the precious jewel of reason, the mind, of attaining heights beyond man's wildest dreams and fondest hopes? Is the step any greater from the present day man or woman to the Christ than it was from the lowest forms of animal life or the most primitive mortal to the man of today? No thinking man or woman can gainsay this proposition. Added to this, we have the assurance, the promise of those who have gone before us, that it shall be, and that it does not really matter how long the journey may be. The ultimate attainment is as inevitable as the existence of God himself. Everywhere we see the evidences, the earmarks, the indications of development. Things of 15 years ago are called old-fashioned because they no longer meet the needs of present-day civilization and are no longer up to the standards set by the human race even that short space of time. Thought is far more advanced along all lines than it was even 5 years ago, and the stride of civilization has been rapidly forward. Looking back over the development of the plant and the vegetable kingdoms, we find that the progress in times past was slow. Thousands of years was required to even add a petal to the rose. In the animal kingdom, to lengthen the neck of the desert antelope so that he could eat the foliage of the tall trees and develop into what we call the giraffe. But in all these evolutions, we see that the main principle of true development was absent, that of intelligence. As soon as that faculty was added, growth became rapid. Now, in our civilization of today, with the highest degree of intelligence ever manifested by the human race, changes take place so rapidly that things become out of style or old-fashioned overnight. This advancement, this standard of thought pertains to all fields of industry and all branches of human knowledge. Through the application of the brain of man, we see the ordinary sand palm transformed into the luscious nectarine by a series of intermingling of breeds. Horses, dogs, and our domestic and wild animals are almost rendered unrecognizable as springing from their original species. And the mind must pause in its contemplation of things and wonder if such things are obtainable perceptibly, consciously, by the application of the intelligence of the human brain to the lower forms of life, the plant, vegetable, and animal kingdoms. What possibilities may lie dormant within the human soul which, through the application, the concentration, the lifting power of the human mind, might be manifested, and rise the whole being into immortality. If the grain of wheat and the flower seed can go into the soul and then grow and reproduce after their kind, without the initiative of a guiding intelligence of their own, but only through outward conditions and the divine impulse within their hearts, can any reasoning human being gainsay the possibilities of at least a proportionate development of man? The flower seed can only produce after its kind. It cannot make or change its growth except through outside conditions and influences. It has no individual initiative. The soul may stunt its development or make it grow luxuriantly, but without these outside influences, it will always be the same kind of flower. But the moment that there is intelligence added, in the form of a Burbank, a variety is obtained which does not, as it were, recognize itself. It changes from a seeded variety to a seedless fruit. It evolves from the most common to the rarest variety of which we can conceive. And through what? Through the outside influence of a guiding intelligence, a brain which can take the forces of nature, and through the laws which nature decrees, mold the substances of the universe into that which it wishes to bring forth. What a lesson man may derive from this! The keynote of all creation is development, evolution. The impulse of all the forces of the universe is onward, ever onward, and upward to higher, finer, newer manifestations and forms of life, which will express and show forth the highest expressions and possibilities of the creative force back of them. And to man are given the wonderful advantages of intelligence combined with soul, express and show forth the highest expressions and possibilities to express the ideal which God holds in his mind of him. Man has the greatest opportunity of all creation for his development. He has that wonderful shaper, that maker, that guider, that governor, the mind. The mind is the master builder that takes the substance of the universe, and if it will listen to the guidance of the soul, it may build an eternal habitation. It has the opportunity and the authority to take the divine essences and, like a sculptor, mold out of the substance of the universe the ideal which it holds in mind, to make an imperishable body, to construct a divine mind and build an illuminated soul. And from whence is it given this authority? From whence comes this power? Always from within. All development or unfoldment, all evolution is from within out. Nothing develops from the outward inwardly. Nature is an unfoldment, not a surface growth. Everything must come from the idea, the root, the heart. Heart development is soul development. Mind development must eventually gradually give place to the heart guidance. And without any guidance, nothing can be accomplished. And with these wonderful faculties of mind and soul, man has the most glorious opportunity that can be afforded anything in the universe. His mind permits him to comprehend the constructive laws. His mind shapes the course of events, prompts him, gives him the opportunity to commune with his fellows. Through his mind, he creates continually, body and soul, and he is guided in all of his activities through the conformity to the laws which the mind permits him to understand. Mind is the starting point, the guide through the entire creative process. Through the use of his intelligence, the law of cause and effect says to man that as he sows, he shall reap. He knows that he cannot build without a plan, and he takes into his heart the highest ideal which he can conceive, and sowing love, beauty, purity, thoughts of the highest of which he can dream, he builds ever onward and upward towards the attainment of that ideal in his heart. As he grows, gradually the mind becomes refined, and the soul is built into the image and likeness of God. The mind then gives place to the soul, and as the soul is manifest, the body becomes quickened and spiritualized, imperishable, and the ultimate of creation is reached. The final evolvement, the perfect man, intuition, then has taken the seat of reason, and communion, conscious communion with God is established, and the soul wings its way upward and still upward into ethereal realms until it can say with the Master, I and the Father are one. This is the purpose of evolution. All nature proclaims that it is a possibility and must be accomplished, and the wise man and woman will take the hint which has been given by the evolution of the centuries and set the feet unfaltering, steadfastly upon the path which leads to the mark of the high calling of God, even the Christ, the Son of the living God. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. It is much needed. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.